Well, today is called Maundy Thursday, but the word Maundy is not really common in English. I guess most people, even some Christians, would not really know this word very well. I remember when I was in Cyprus, I was talking to a very active church member about Maundy Thursday service, and the person just asked, "Are you talking about Monday service or Thursday service?" So Maundy is not so common word. And in Australia, I noticed that Maundy Thursday is called Easter Thursday sometimes, which is completely wrong because Easter doesn't start until Saturday night. So now you cannot really call Easter Good Friday, Easter Friday, or Holy Saturday, Easter Saturday, because that's not really Easter. Easter really starts on Saturday night. This is still Holy Week until Saturday evening. So we are in the Holy Week. So Maundy Thursday is also called Holy Thursday. But the word Maundy really comes from Latin word mandatum, which means commandment. So I prefer the word Holy Thursday actually because it's part of the Holy Week. But the reason why it's called Maundy Thursday is because of Gospel reading today. Because Jesus gave new commandment on that day. So foot washing is a part of this new commandment, the precursor of this new commandment. So that's what our gospel reading is, why the name is taken. And I say I prefer Holy Thursday because it also, another significance of today is that Jesus started the Holy Communion. So there are two significances, but our gospel reading was more about the new commandment. And it was based on the foot washing to start with. So I wish we would do the foot washing. We haven't done it for 3 years now because of COVID. But hopefully next year we will go back to foot washing because it's such a good imagery, strong image of what Jesus has done. And today's reading starts with before the Festival of Passover. Passover is the occasion when God delivered people of Israel out of Egypt. And to do that, he killed all the firstborn of the Egyptians. But people Israelites were saved when they killed a lamb on the night, as we read from our Old Testament reading. So the reason why Passover is emphasized here is because Jesus is given as a Passover lamb. Indeed, the Gospel of John really emphasized this Passover lamb aspect. And it says Jesus knew that his time had come to leave this world and go. So when it came to Passover, Jesus knew that he was going to be given as the Passover lamb. And it says, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them fully. Well, when he says he loved them fully, John is really talking about Jesus' death. Because Jesus' death is his ultimate love for us, of which we will talk more about tomorrow. But in order to just really show his own love of death, he also set example to us tonight by washing the disciples' feet. And it is a good example because foot washing at the time was usually done by servants. It was the Palestine is a quite dusty area, so if you just walk around with sandals, your feet are quite dirty. So when you come into the house, the servants wash your feet. But Jesus, at this time, washed his disciples' feet, assuming the position of a servant to his disciples. And then you can understand why Peter protested so vehemently. Oh, no, you can't do this. You are the master. We are your disciples. It should be the other way around. And Jesus' answer was, you don't understand what I'm doing now, but you will understand later. Later when? When Peter grows in faith. When Peter understands what Christian love means, then he will understand why Jesus washed his feet. But Peter, with his the personality, doesn't really stop with one protest, but he still continues protesting. Then Jesus says, unless I wash you, you won't have a place with me. So here's another level of this washing, because he's doing it as a preparation for his death. So when he says, unless I wash you, you won't have a place with me, what it means is unless you accept my ministry, unless you accept my sacrifice for you. So our humility is not only becoming servants, but accepting that Jesus really served us. If we do not really accept Jesus' offering, Jesus' sacrifice for us, we are not true Christians. If we don't like the fact that Jesus died for us, it must be from our pride. We are not humble enough to accept this. Then we don't really have part in Jesus. We are not in Jesus' family if we don't accept this. Then Jesus, after that, also said that you are clean, saying to the disciples, because Jesus' blood will wash them. Jesus washes them when they accept Jesus' ministry, when they accept Jesus' sacrifice, when they accept Jesus' death, they are clean. And so we are clean as well. Then after he washed the disciples' feet, he says, do you know what I have done for you? So he explains his own acts, which is not what he does all the time. But he thinks that this is so important that he should explain this to them. And he says, if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you too must wash each other's feet. In other words, we should be servants of one another. And if Jesus, being the Master and Lord, was put himself in the position of a servant, then this is especially true to those who are in a high position, those who have higher respect by others, those who are leaders. Then we should be even more servants as we get more respect from others. Then he just talks about this and says, I have given you an example. It's not rare, it's rare actually that Jesus does some acts to give an example. When Jesus does something, he does it so that because he loves people, because he really wants to heal people and everything. But this act of washing disciples' feet was to give the example for us. He didn't really have to do this, because washing their feet once is not a big deal. But he did it so that he will set an example for the disciples. And he says, since you know these things, you will be happy if you do them. So the happiness for Christians, happiness for the disciples of Jesus is to do this. In other words, to love one another and to serve one another. That's our true happiness. If we become true servants, then we are happy. Then the rest of the part is actually separate part in the reading. There's something in between that is that Jesus point out that Judas is the betrayer, and Judas leave the room. So after Judas had gone out to betray him, Jesus says, now the human one has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. Because Judas has gone out to betray him, Jesus is glorified, because human one is the way that Jesus referred to himself. And God has been glorified through Jesus. because Jesus came to this earth to die for us. So his glory comes from his death. So now the whole series, events leading up to death, has begun with Judas leaving the place. Jesus says, now I'm glorified. And now God is glorified in me. That shows that Jesus' death is so important. And of course, Jesus' death is the event that leads to the next one, resurrection and ascension as well. So Jesus is glorified through his death first, then also through the resurrection and ascension. Then Jesus says, where I'm going, you can come. And he can refer to death here and also ascension. Well, the disciples couldn't really go to him because they will not die immediately when it refers to death. But if it refers to ascension, the disciples can't go to the same place until Jesus comes back. Because Jesus' ascension is with the resurrected body in a very special way on the right hand of God. And although we say commonly when we die, when Christians die, the person went to be with the Lord, that is in a more figurative speech. But to be really with the Lord bodily, we will have to wait till Jesus comes back. So we cannot really go to where Jesus is until he comes back. So that's what Jesus is referring to. Where I'm going, you can't come. But he says this not to discourage them, but encourage them. Because although they cannot come to Jesus now, if they keep the Jesus commandments, if they do what Jesus asked them to do, then they are still close to Jesus. They are near Jesus. So, knowing that we cannot go to Jesus at the moment, we have to keep Jesus' commandments even more. And that's why Jesus gave the new commandment after saying this. Because this is the reason why they have to, or we have to keep the commandment. He says, I give you a new commandment, love each other. Just as I have loved you, so you also must love each other. Love each other is not really a new commandment because the Old Testament also says love your neighbor, which means basically love each other. Love fellow Christians is what it means. So why does Jesus say that this is a new commandment? Because he adds the next part, just as I have loved you, so you also must love each other. So we have had this command from the beginning, from the time of Moses, to love one another, love fellow believers. But here we now have even a good example to follow, Jesus' own example. And Jesus said example with foot washing, but when he says, as I loved you, he's talking more about his own death, because he's about to die. So we are to love one another, love each other to the degree of giving our lives. That's what Jesus is saying to us. Then he says, this is how everyone will know that you are my disciples, when you love each other. In other words, this is one most important mark of Christians. When we love each other, it will be clear that we are Christians. And when he says everyone, I don't think he's just referring to non-believers, saying, well, people outside will know that you are Christians because you love each other. Is not the only thing that Jesus is saying. He's talking about believers as well. When we love one another, we can be sure that we are true Christians. If you ever have doubt that, am I really a follower of Jesus? Then this is the test that you can check. Or this is the question that you can ask yourself. Am I loving fellow believers? If the answer is yes, then you can say, yes, I'm a Christian. I'm a good Christian. I am following Jesus. Because this is the mark of Christians. So let us remember today, on this night when Jesus was betrayed, on this night that Jesus started the Holy Communion, and on this night that Jesus washed the disciples' feet, that he washed the disciples' feet to set an example. And his death should be an example to us as well. The degree of love that we should practice. So when we love each other, when we love one another and serve one another, we will have true happiness. Because Jesus said, since you know these things, you will be happy if you do them. So we will be truly happy when we really give ourselves to other people. And we will also be sure that we are Christians. We are truly followers of Jesus. So let us heed this commandment that Jesus gave us on this Maundy Thursday, meaning commandment, to love each other as Jesus has loved us. Glory be to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.